Welcome to the premiere of the Spallation Quartet. My name is Larry Spivack, and a wonderful thing happened to me last year in the spring. I got a call from my friend Scott Eddlemon. He said, we want to commission you to write this new piece. We have this much money in the budget. Can you do it? I said, yes. He said, okay, start working on it. And I did. He said, the only stipulation is it's supposed to celebrate the Spallation Neutron Source. So I spent the next couple of weeks learning about the SNS, and I'm really thrilled to be here today to play this piece for all of you. Now, let me introduce the members of our quartet. On violin, we have Susan Eddlemon. On cello, we have Dan Allcott. Dan is also the musical director of the Oak Ridge Symphony. My friend Scott Eddlemon is playing percussion. Now, I should say that I met Scott almost 40 years ago when we were both students at Juilliard. And we lost touch and reconnected a couple of years ago and just picked up the same conversation we were having in 1975. Before we start, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the world of percussion. So let me just show you a couple of the instruments that we're using here today. The marimba, which is where Scott is a modern version of the oldest musical instrument, which was actually a couple of pieces of dried out wood that a caveman hit with a bone. Now, the modern innovation is, there are two of them actually. This one has resonators, the tubes that go underneath the wooden, or actually these are plastic bars, and also it's set up like a piano keyboard. You can see the black keys and the white keys, even though they're all the same color. Now, people say, well, I've never heard the marimba, so we're going to play a little bit of what I think is the most famous marimba part that you would know. Oh, 1, 2, 3, and... How many of you have heard that? That's, of course, the Ben E. King version of Spanish Harlem. And the marimba is always popular in Mexico and Guatemala, so it's associated with Latin America, which is why they use it for Spanish Harlem, even though it's not necessarily associated with Spain. Now, the cousin of the marimba, which is the oldest instrument, is the instrument that I'm going to be playing, the vibraphone. And this is one of the newest percussion instruments. This one was invented in 1929. And they said, why don't we, instead of using wood, why don't we use metal, which will ring? We'll add a sustain pedal, so you can control the amount of ringing, and we'll add an electric motor, which will control the vibrato of the bars. Now, people say, well, I've never heard the vibraphone. So we're going to play a little bit of what I think is the most famous vibraphone passage. It's the theme song of The Coolest Man on the Planet. Okay, who recognizes that music? The vibraphone is really a perfect sound for James Bond because it's a cool sound, and he's the coolest man on the planet. Now, there's another instrument that you may not be familiar with. They're called crotales. They look like big gold coins, and they're suspended. But these are actually a modern version of ancient instruments which are mentioned in the Bible. as ringing cymbals, and these are tuned to definite pitches. And you'll hear them as an accompaniment in the Spallation Quartet. There's one more instrument that we're going to use. Let's see, can you step over a little bit to your right? Which is this instrument. Now, how many of you have seen this before? You have? Okay. This is called Cymbal Guy, and this is actually a co-invention of mine. I have two partners, and we invented this in 2005, and in 2008 we got a US patent on it. And it's a way of getting a loud cymbal crash using a foot pedal. Now, the funny thing about this instrument is I knew nothing about inventing when I started working on it. And the patent office is really great now if you want to be an inventor. You don't have to hire a lawyer to do a patent search. You can go on their website and check it out. And when I started working on this instrument and researching to see what was like it, I found out that the official US trademark and patent classification is based on the way the cymbals are mounted. So this particular musical instrument is called a rigid vibrator. I'm not making it up. So now the Spallation Quartet. I'm going to try to familiarize you with some of the themes, the way we've represented some of the sounds and some of the processes. Now, the hydrogen ion, proton, which is positive, is going to be represented by the violin. Okay, thanks, Sue. Now, the two electrons, which are negative, are going to be represented by the vibraphone playing two notes at a time. Now, you'll hear the violin play the melody alone, then you'll hear the vibraphone play its melody, and then the violin and the vibraphone are going to play together to show how the proton and the two electrons are perfectly. Okay, thanks, Sue. Now, the second movement is called Lincac and Foil. And in this movement, the hydrogen ions are lined up as like eager recruits getting ready to go to the army. So you'll hear the melody that was played by the violin before, only now it sounds like a march. Now, the next part of the piece is the foil, where the electrons get trapped. And the sound of the foil is going to be played by Scott on the tam-tam, which is like a big gong. And at the end of that movement, you'll actually hear the electrons crying out as they get trapped on the foil. The third movement, where the protons are bunched up together, the sound is going to be represented by the two string instruments, the violin and the cello. Now, she's playing two notes, and the cello is playing one note, but they're bunched up together. Can you play that again? Okay, now the actual sound of the collision with the target is going to be played by the bass drum. Only we prepared the bass drum by filling it with BBs and marbles. So that's supposed to represent the sound of the particles spalling off. Now, when the actual, after the spallation occurs, you'll hear the melody that was played on the violin previously on the glockenspiel, because now the neutrons are represented by ringing metal sounds. Also in this section, Scott is going to be playing an instrument called the flexitone, which is sort of like a handheld musical saw. Okay, we hope you enjoy the Spallation Quartet. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thanks very much. One thing I forgot to mention before is this project is an ongoing part of the Isotone Chamber Music Series, which is part of the Oak Ridge Civic Music Association. And thank you so much, all of you, for coming and being such a great audience. We really enjoyed playing for you today.